When you fight corruption, it fights back. Corruption fights back. It normally fights in stages. First, they will try to compromise you, give you the money if you want. If you fail, if you refuse, if you are able to resist, then you will be a target of destruction. If you are not lucky, you will lose your life.
The large chunk of those oppressed have in one way or the other oppressed their fellow oppressed. And you see this in the day-to-day activities of Nigerians. You see this in the day-to-day activities and lives of people, and how we get to communicate, and how we get to lead life, and how we get to live life, and how things ordinarily get to play in our lives and how they don't get to play. From getting jobs to getting fired, from getting appointments to being appointed, from getting public recognition. Even in places of worship, you get to see that the relationship is divided across this level of the oppressed and the oppressor, the forced and the enforcer, and it lingers even longer. Being a Nigerian in the 21st century leaves you with a whole lot of things to talk about, a whole lot of things to say, and sometimes you begin to sound as if you have repeated yourself too many times with nobody getting to listen to you, with no way of ordinarily coming to wrap your hands around the situations you find yourself. And it leaves you in destitution, it leaves you in constant confusion, it leaves you in a place where ordinarily you cannot really come out from. It leaves you in a very, very tight corner. It leaves you in a place that leads you to despair. It leads you to that place where if you're not strong enough, you'll be left with a broken spirit. And Nigeria is not short of broken people. It's not short of broken things. It's not short of broken dreams and suffocating dreams. Because tell me how we live life the way we live life, and we don't see reasons as to how we can better our situation, and we don't see reasons as to how we can move forward and move further into a brighter future, into a brighter space than the one we currently have. And yet we almost have given up. We have almost come to this level of resignation that we've told ourselves that almost nothing can work. And if one gets to ask you, what are the problems in Nigeria? What are the current situations we're having in the country? The first thing that comes on the list for many persons will be corruption. And they will be saying the truth, and the truth is not far-fetched, just like an apple would not fall far off from its tree, despite the whole levels of seed dispersal and the likes of that. Corruption. What is that in Nigeria? In Nigeria, we're told that corruption is a cankerworm that has eaten deep into the fabric of the Nigerian people, that has eaten deep into the fabric of the society itself, and has left us in a very, very tight situation, and has left us in a very, very confusing state where we ordinarily cannot look at things beyond the lens of corruption. And that definition, no matter how commonplace it has become, no matter how common we now get to use it and we now come to look at it, there's a danger. The danger here is the fact that we don't really look at the idea of the fabric. Everybody gets to put on these materials one way or the other. It's a fabric, and its proximity and propinquity is not far-fetched. It's a thing we all are familiar with. And so when they say corruption is a cankerworm that has eaten deep into the fabric of our everyday life, of the society, it goes to say that we, one way or the other, have this stain of corruption lingering around us one way or the other. We have it here, we have it there, we have it one way or the other so close to us that than we even want to come to accept. And when we look at our clothes, as close as they are to our skin, we come to look at this metaphorical cankerworm that is eating into our fabrics and into our situations. And what we have to do and how we have to come to really realize how this thing is eating deep into us is to look at our life, is to look at our situation, is to look at our day-to-day existence, is to look at how we get to lead our lives and how people get to lead their life in relation to us, and how we get to tangle or mingle or intertwine despite whatsoever the situation of our meeting or encounters come to be and whatever point of encounters are as Nigerians. I say this because I want you to look at the day-to-day dealings in Nigeria and ask yourself, at what point are we ordinarily different from those corrupt guys we are talking about? At what point are we ordinarily to look at our lives from a different perspective as opposed to the life of those we currently claim to be corrupt people? Because when we talk about corruption, the first thing that comes to our mind, we are tied up and we look at our politicians, we look at our governors, we look at our senators, we look at our ministers, we look at our politicians as this corrupt set of persons. We look at people so far off from ourselves and far off than ourselves, and we look at people other than ourselves and tell ourselves that, they are corrupt. But if we were to go by reality and if we were to go by what ordinarily has become Nigeria and we were to look at the situation at hand, we will come to understand that there's almost no family, that's if there's any family at all, that can lay claims of not having one tie or the other to do with ordinary what has led to the country being like this. And I say this from two angles, from the angle of the oppressor and from the angle of the oppressed. From the angle of the oppressor, you find a whole lot of persons through the short history that has become the current dispensation of the place we now call Nigeria, as opposed its natural existence over centuries now gone, now past. If you look at the crop of oppressors, you get to see that one thing they have in common is the fact that they also get to die. But how they die also is also important but inconsequential at the moment, because the large chunk of those oppressed have in one way or the other oppressed their fellow oppressed. And you see this in the day-to-day activities of Nigerians. You see this in the day-to-day activities and lives of people, and how we get to communicate and how we get to lead life and how we get to live life and how things ordinarily get to play in our lives and how they don't get to play. From getting jobs to getting fired, from getting appointments to being appointed, from getting public recognition. Even in places of worship, you get to see that the relationship is divided across this level of the oppressed and the oppressor, the forced and the enforcer. And it lingers even longer. It lingers longer from our political class, the politicians, and how they lead their life and how they live their life and how they ordinarily want to remain relevant as opposed to ordinarily doing their job. When was the last time you ordinarily pointed at a politician comfortably and said, this person actually is trying, without having doubt in your heart that probably this person is doing this for greater favors to come? But at least let us even see those politicians who want to do favors that would benefit them in the future. Let us even see those ones. At least let's start from there. The politicians that will tell themselves that, I want to do this thing for my people so that my people can vote for me in the future. Let us even see that crop of people. We have not even seen them in a very long time. There are a few of them scattered here that even make their distinction from the great chunk of corrupt set even almost a thing done in futility, and it makes the whole thing, it makes that particular group of persons inconsequential, because they get swallowed up one way or the other by the engagement and the interaction with a whole lot of persons and a whole lot of friends they have in that particular circle. And you would ask me, what then is the point of talking about corruption? We talk about corruption because if we don't talk about it, the system gets to crumble. Nuhu Ribadu said many years ago that, I think about 10 years ago, when he was giving his TED talk in Berlin, that
when you fight corruption, it fights back. Corruption fights back. It normally fights in stages. First, they will try to compromise you, give you the money if you want. If you fail, if you refuse, if you are able to resist, then you will be a target of destruction. If you are not lucky, you will lose your life.
When you fight corruption, corruption fights harder. And it fights harder on different fronts. He went further to state the different ways in which he believes corruption fights back. And One of those ways, one of the ways he pointed out was they come with you with money. If you like money, if you don't take money, you become a threat to them and they try to eliminate you. And we saw that in his person also, that he almost got snuffed out thanks to him using a bulletproof car that day when he was attacked, and his life got spared. Whatever has become of his life ever since he left the EFCC, it's a thing up for debate for many persons who want to really look at that. But what I'm drawing out from his life is the fact that he tried within the available means to him and to his level of ethics and morality to get to see to it that things get better. But things weren't just getting, things weren't better. Things were not working and moving well for him. And I say this because if you look at his life and you look at the involvement of him in the agent in the commission, that's EFCC, you get to see how many difficulties he had to go through and how many persons he had to ordinarily get to bring to public light and attention, and you get to see how his life ordinarily went and probably where he currently is. And he has really lived a very, very difficult and a very, very challenging life on many fronts, on his own ethics and his own morality, as well as I want to also believe. But the thing down there is that corruption has fought back and it continues to fight back at us as Nigerians. It continues to do us more harm than good. It continues to kill us slowly, one way or the other, in ways we ordinarily cannot even imagine, in ways we ordinarily don't even want to come to accept. From our hospitals to the elections we get to conduct, to the judiciary, to the different ministries we have in the country, to the different affairs that encompasses the Nigerian experience and the Nigerian reality, you get to see our negligence or our inability to combat a thing like corruption come to full play and come to play well. You want to go to the hospitals and get to ordinarily see how people are treated. I don't want to tell you how many of us can comfortably go to hospitals in Nigeria. How many of us can comfortably fall sick, get admitted, and go to hospitals? How many of us can comfortably have an emergency and pick up our phones and dial an emergency number and see the police officers get to come? Do we even have emergency numbers functioning so well? Apart from few metropolitan cities that get to ordinarily do that, the rural areas, do you even have a police station in your place? Is there a hospital in your village? Do you think hospitals are things meant only for those in the cities? Do you think good schools are things only those in the city should ordinarily have? Do you think your life and the life of your parents in the village or in rural areas ordinarily were supposed to be the way they are in the 21st century as opposed to how they ordinarily were supposed to be? Do you think you as a student ordinarily should go to school and get to be so scared of paying bribe and all that? I have little experience, one-on-one experience as it concerns my encounter with public schools in Nigeria, and I sometimes want to consider myself as a privileged Nigerian, but to even think of the fact that I am a privileged Nigerian is a problem because I've not come to seriously deal with professors and lecturers when it comes to places of higher learning. And I am kind of grateful to a large extent that I can sit down and read for my exams and pass. And they're not so difficult a thing to ordinarily get to pass exams. Passing exams shouldn't be that difficult in the first place, but we have just given ourselves to this particular reality, and we have almost come to that point in our life where we tell ourselves that nothing can change and nothing can change us and nobody should bother trying to change us because nothing can ordinarily change in our life. And I say this, and you see this also in your own life. You see this in the ways we do business, in the ways we even worship God, from our current traditional worshiping trends and the ways in which people want to go back to their roots. Not for true worship, not for true claiming of the African root, but for acquiring power, acquiring wealth. These things they get to sell themselves. The same things Christianity at the moment in the country is facing. The same thing Islam is one way or the other propagating for the people. The idea of coming to God as though it's a transaction. It is that level of decay we have come to see in the day-to-day events that have become our situation. You give to God because you want Him to give to you. From Catholic bazaars to Protestant Thanksgivings to Pentecostal prophecies and prosperity gospel, these things are not far-fetched. They are within our reach. They are within the reality in which we have come to find ourselves at the moment. They are within this place. They are within our places of interaction and experience. And it leaves me asking the question, which type of God do you worship? A God that easily changes his mind, or a God that you ordinarily can get to command, to prophesy into your life? I don't understand. Because my understanding of prayer is talking to God, not shouting at him, not commanding him, not calling him down as if he is one servant of yours or what. I don't understand. That might be the case that there are some terrestrial spirits that ordinarily can do one or two things, or their forces in nature through incantation and through certain rituals. Those are up for debate. But if we're looking at the idea of a God in the real and the strict sense of the word, it becomes a challenge for us to ordinarily relate to him the way we relate to him, and yet we don't feel sad that we relate to God the ways we relate to him. It becomes a problem that when you look at your life and you look at your situation and you look at the way things are in your life and you look at the fact that you can just shout on God, it shows you how corrupt and how depraved your mind also at the moment is. Because that is not the right way to religion. That is not the promise of religion in the strict sense. The promise of religion has to do with filling the void, the Augustinian void of, Lord, you've made us for yourself and our hearts are restless until they rest in you. That sense of meaning, the meaning crisis we're experiencing, that is the primary reason of God not granting wealth. Wealth comes from creation. Wealth comes from creating wealth down here. And the whole clamor for money has not always been that way. Money is an invention, a man-made invention. And we have to work within the jurisdiction that is the creation of wealth physically and not tied down to God. Be it the case that whether you are going back to the roots of what we now call African traditional religion, or you're a Christian, or you're a Muslim, or you are a Buddhist, or you are a Hindu, or whatever you currently get to ascribe yourself, or you're a Jew, or you're even an atheist, it doesn't call for this clamor to seek the spiritual solely because of you wanting wealth. It becomes a deception. It becomes a corrupt stuff from your own perspective. And these and many more are just the few problems we get to experience when you come to tolerate corruption, when you come to allow a place like Nigeria to wallow in corruption. And I tell you, corruption is everywhere. It's in your family, it's in my family, it's in the day-to-day activities of the country. It is in every available corner of our country, and by extension, Africa, and by extension, also the world. But we just accepting this as the answer alone and as the way forward alone. It's a thing we ordinarily must not do. It's a thing we ordinarily should not accept. Accepting this leaves us dying. Accepting this situation leaves us crumbling. Accepting this leaves us to our own disaster, and we get to destroy our civilization from within before it gets to be destroyed from without, just like Uyuduran will get to tell us. And so, what am I saying? In essence, I am saying something very simple. I am saying something very straightforward. We have to nip corruption at its very board. It's not even a board at the moment. We have to deflate it. It's become bigger than a balloon. It's more than a hot balloon at the moment. It's flying everywhere. We have to put off the heat. We have to deflate the tire. We have to wage a war against it, rather than this idea of wanting to benefit from it and wanting to benefit from it alone. Because that is what we do. We just think, it's our family's turn. It's our turn to benefit. And if anybody wants to try to stop us, then the person is currently doing us a disfavor. If somebody wants to do something different, then the person is ordinarily an enemy of progress and stuff like that. But where is progress in corruption? There's no benefit for the corrupt, and there's no benefit from those deprived from corruption. Nobody really gets to benefit from corruption because you get to see a serious waste of resources, a serious waste of a whole lot of things that becomes the reality at the end of the day. And there's nobody that has really benefited. You want to look at the politician who gets to steal money and deprive children from going to schools and deprive communities from roads and stuff like that. What will he have to do? The reality of what he will have to live with is such a thing as him sending his children to well-to-do schools. They might be in the country, they might be out of the country, but then also he will be depriving the children the chance and the opportunity of meeting new people, of meeting people of different ethnic groups, of meeting people outside his or her own reality, people that sometimes might be supportive and come to collaborate with such kids in the future to get to bring about different innovations and different ideas and different solutions to the problems of the world. But what has he succeeded to do? Because he has failed to ordinarily look at his life and ordinarily look at the situation of things from the perspective he ordinarily was supposed to look at it from, he deprives the child of the chance to ordinarily grow, of the chance to ordinarily function well, of the chance to ordinarily do what that child was ordinarily supposed to do, to see to it that the child lives happily and the child lives well. And so you get to see the level of inequalities and the gaps continue to be wild and wide and wide and wide. And there's almost no meeting point. There's almost no place of meeting. And so such a child gets to live life in isolation. What about chances of coming to know the other tribe and coming to know other persons? The child is boxed in this particular category and knows only that particular reality, and sometimes grows to become as corrupt as the father. Just like Rehoboam, my father has done this to you, I'm going to do this to you guys. I'm going to do 10 times more than what my father did to you guys because of the counsels and those I listened to. What about the chance of not even having chance to spend with your family? As a corrupt man or as a corrupt woman, you get to send your kids abroad because not necessarily because abroad is way better or abroad should ordinarily be way better for you and your situation. Just because you at the moment have failed to realize the fact that your children will be annihilated from you and your children will come to live far off from you. One of the reasons also many businesses in the East and in the country continues to dwindle and continue to fold up. The idea of children not being around to one way or the other continued as fathers' establishment and their fathers' businesses and just selling whatever they can sell or abandoning whatever they can abandon and continue their life abroad one way or the other. I'm not saying he who wants to live in a particular environment should not be granted a chance to live in such an environment. I'm just saying because the fathers and mothers and the brothers and sisters and aunties and uncles of corrupt people in our country have failed to realize that everybody desires equal opportunity. Such a man has deprived himself, such a family have deprived themselves of their offspring and their children, one way or the other, within the available means, want to live in a better country. And so you find people living in different homes, living in different houses, living in different places, as opposed to living together within a particular geographical expression whereby they can easily visit their families. And you want to tell me we don't really see these things. And you want to tell me we should continue like this. And you want to tell me it's all fine, it's all good. That's the way to go. No, that's not the way to go. That is not the way to go. That is not how life should be played. Life is much more serious than what we want to accept life to be. And we will crumble together if we don't tell ourselves the truth. And the truth is, we should come together as Nigerians. Look at our situations, look at our life, look at the events in our immediate environment, look at the hospitals we don't have, look at the roads we don't have, look at the schools that ordinarily get to do more damage to our children than ordinarily get to lead them to enlightenment. Look at these things and tell ourselves there should be a change. There must be a change. We ought to change for things to get to work. And for that to happen, we have to begin to look at our leadership styles. We have to look at the gross inequality of the spread and distribution of wealth and the levels of enterprise and the levels and means of productions left for some persons as opposed to a greater majority. We have to look at our ethnic leanings and how these things ordinarily come to divide us and put us on different levels with our brothers and sisters. We also have to come to tell ourselves that we must work together, else we crumble. We must stand tall together, else we fall apart. That the current place we find ourselves is just a death trap for us. And we're already stealing from the future of our children as opposed to ordinarily leaving them a future. We have to come to realize that we have to plant trees. And we have to plant trees not because we can take shade in those trees. That we have to plant trees because we know the philosophy and the wisdom of planting trees for the next generation. So that when they come, they will at least have a place to get to rest. They will have a place to at least get to put themselves together and get to be sheltered. We have to begin to tell ourselves the truth. And the truth is something we all know. Corruption has become that cankerworm that has eaten deep into the fabric of our very society. And it affects one and it affects all. It affects me, it affects you, it affects everybody. And it will kill us if we do nothing. It will crumble us if we do nothing. If we want to tell ourselves that the current situation of things in our life and in our country is all good and it's all fine and we ordinarily should be comfortable with this. If we want to look at our political leaders and the different failures of the life they have come to live and the life they have come to lead, and we want to tell ourselves that it doesn't concern us, Nigeria will continue happening to us the same way Nigeria has been happening to us over and over and over again. Is there a family that Nigeria has not happened to? Are you not aware of how somebody just slums in the house and there's no car to even get the person in? There's no means to even get the person to a hospital. And even when you even get to the hospitals are almost nothing to write home about. You want to look at a country where each journalist can't even really investigate things because if they get to do that, they become targets in the hands of those they get to offend and those they get to provoke their sentiments, even if they are saying the truth. In a country where journalists are being threatened day in, day out, in a country where activists are being carted away with in vans and being kidnapped and being arrested and nobody say anything. Are we not tired of the way we are just too comfortable with our situation? How complacent we are with the day-to-day living of our life in a place like Nigeria? Are we not tired of our tribalism and how it aids corruption in Nigeria? Are we not tired of how we get to lead life in a place like Nigeria? Are we not tired of the various levels of confusion we get to see being exhibited in our lives and in the lives of our friends and our brothers and our sisters, all in the name of living in Nigeria? Are we not tired of seeing our sons and daughters get to leave the country? People that ordinarily were supposed to stay and help the country. But why would they stay? Just like Dele Farotimi will get to say, the sane ones are the ones that are out there. Only the insane ordinarily wants to remain in Nigeria. You juxtapose that with the life like Dike Chukwumerije, who said, I have everything it takes to ordinarily live abroad and function there well and do things there. But I don't think that is where my place is. My place is where I am at the moment. My place is with my people. I am back here to do what I ordinarily am supposed to do. I am back here to do what I am ordinarily supposed to do. And what is that? Leading life well. And what is that? Growing tall, standing strong, speaking up where I can, hoping that tomorrow, when it comes, life will be better. It's a dream we all should carry, the dream to see Nigeria walk, a dream that we all cannot ordinarily avoid. We must, by all means, work together to see to it that Nigeria walks, else we crumble together. We have seen the 20th century lost. We've seen last year carted away that way. We've seen our life spent to this point with almost no answers given to us. Are we bent on seeing that our current situation and going into the future, the life will come to meet down there get to be wasted also? I don't think so. I don't think any well-meaning Nigerian wants to do that. But that's what many persons seem to want. I don't think that is the way to go. I don't think that is the way we should go. I am Biringkpa bin Emeka, the mendicant. I am your brother, strolling this war with you. See you next time.